What's going on, everybody? My name is Linwood. Thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you guys are excited because I am. Why? Because this next hour is so jam-packed full of hope, positivity, optimism, gratitude, mental toughness, and an attitude check, baby. So if I were you, I'd get ready for it by pulling up a chair, pulling up a couple of shots, letting your hair down, kicking your shoes off, but just relax because this will be the best hour that you have received, and I'm excited for it. Let's go!
Joseph Jaffy is not famous. I'm famous. Joseph Jaffy is a delusional human being who thinks he's famous. He's not famous. He's not famous. I'm famous.
There was one guy I was dealing with getting a little bit pissy over the kid interrupting the call thing, and I'm like, appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
My bad. Please continue. It's very alliterative.
They are going to be the ones powering the experiences that every customer has.
Preference has power. I'm pretty sure Cato would say to me when I do every show, stop.
I think he would.
Those peeps are popping. Wait till you get the invoice.
Here. I have a question. When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you laughed?
Right now.
You flew.
I don't want to dance with you.
When's the last time you flew a kite?
Toasted Oreo.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How did I do that?
insane. You're insane.
Well, happy Monday, everybody. It is September 27th, and I hope you're well. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Glenn is here. He says, good evening, Joseph. Hope you are not too sunburned. I'm not too sunburned, although I did actually get into the sun, in front of the sun, for the first time this entire summer. It was amazing. Amazing just to lie on the beach, South Beach, and enjoy the rays for about an hour with a daiquiri and 2 beers and a nice little power nap based on all of that together. I felt really good. I was in Miami visiting my son, who's at the University of Miami. Go Canes. C-A-N-E-S, Canes, like J-E-T-S, Jets. It was mixed feelings with the Hurricanes, the University of Miami, playing Southern Connecticut State University. It was a 69-0 bloodbath. But at least it wasn't Western Connecticut State University, because I teach at WestCon, and I would not have been happy about having to divide my loyalties. Leslie Laredo is here. She says, I too got some sun this weekend in Palm Beach. So near and yet so far from you, Leslie. I'll figure out a way to see you in person soon enough. And Tom Morris is here. He said, I like the yodeling in the intro. Happy Monday, Joseph and all. I have to tell you a little funny story. We rented a Jeep and from National, Go Like a Pro. And, my wife has always wanted to drive a Jeep. And so I decided, let's get a Jeep. It's not kind of my ideal car, but, let's experience what it is to have a Jeep. And we called for the Jeep at the valet at our hotel. And what happens is the Jeep arrives and we get into it and we plug in the GPS and we start driving. And a bunch of weird things start happening. First of all, my son complains about the smell, my youngest son, the smell in the car. Is that smoke? Like, what's that weird smell? And I say, well, it's maybe the valet was smoking or something like that. And then basically my son says, well, they also cleaned out the whole car. Like, none of my stuff is here. And I said, well, that's weird. I wonder if maybe they put that into lost property. And then we continue driving, and there are 2 cups of Starbucks, and I felt that was weird too. Why were there 2 cups of Starbucks? I didn't realize that we had got Starbucks, but we had them on the plane. Finally, we're about 4 miles into our drive, and I'm looking for the AC, and I'm like, where is the AC button? I know the AC button was here. And I just turn around and I just look very calmly at my wife and I go, is this our car? And she looks and she goes, no, it's not. We've gotten into the wrong Jeep. So there was a valet, there was a Jeep that had been called down or called up from another guest. It had arrived. They hadn't showed up yet. And when we walked out and saw the Jeep, we pointed to it. The valet kind of nodded. We got into somebody else's car and drove off. It was one of the weirdest things that has ever happened. I'm not really sure. Something like, maybe that happens all the time, but what are the odds of two Jeeps at the identical, at the same time? Anyway, funny little story. But we did return it. We got the nice smelling Jeep and we went on our way. And we do not have a criminal record yet. The police of Miami-Dade County are not after us. They're not after me either for my first real NFT purchase, the broadcaster number 609. Apparently, I have switched genders as well. So I'm not really sure what that means now that this is my reveal. I don't know if it's rare. I don't know if I can resell it. I don't know if I can make it my picture. So I'm still just as clueless as I was last week when I gave you my seated soliloquy. But at least now my broadcaster number 609 in the series has some kind of identity. Tom says, I love Joseph's story. I'm going to the private airfield in town. I'm going to point to a Hawker 800 and see how far I can go. And Leslie says, kind of like getting into the wrong Uber. And I'm sure that happens all the time. But moving right along, as usual, if it is 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time on September 27th, you, my friends, will be getting yourself a free Jaffy. All you have to do is look at that QR code that just auto magically appeared on the screen, point your camera to the QR code, follow these directions or just follow directions, and you will get a Jaffy coin that is at the moment $6.50. In fact, every single day that there is a show, you can earn yourself more Jaffy coin. All you have to do is watch live. And this is my way of being able to recognize and reward my community. And that is something that we will discuss today with my guest, Chris Matz. Chris Matz. It's actually a bit of a tongue twister, Chris. I didn't realize. And more on Chris's in a moment. It is Ancestor Appreciation Day, September 27th. So I want to just appreciate all of your ancestors, the people that came before us, the people that paved the way. And we will talk about those ancestors, I'm sure, no doubt, a little bit later when we talk about options, because Chris Matz is an options trader, not a literal options trader, but a conceptual and a strategic options trader. So this is, you know what? I forgot to change them up. Chris Matz is my guest today. Chris West is my guest tomorrow, and Chris Wallace is my guest on Wednesday. I did so well to change the photos, but I forgot to change their names. And then Toy Sweeney is my guest on Thursday. So Chris and Chris and Chris are our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, back to back guests, and then Toy Sweeney on Thursday. Chris is a Ghostbuster. Again, more on that soon enough. And then we welcome Super Shalonda, the Poetic Spark. She is a creator. She is a poet. She's an educator. She's an author and a voice actress. And as I like to say, all of that before 9 a.m. And then on Friday, our reunion show with David Spinks, with Francine Hardaway, with Chris Burgrave, with April Rinnie, and finally John Kutsia, as many of our guests and the creators that can make the show. It is Fridays at 12 noon Eastern time on Zoom. Watch my socials for those URLs. And remember, it is for Jaffy coin holders and guests and friends of guests and regulars. And all you need to do is hold one Jaffy coin, which of course you could be getting right now for free. So there really isn't a price or a cost other than the ability to say this is for community only. We're building a Jaffy economy. We are building a beautiful Jaffy community.
And one of the things that the community gets is a seated soliloquy. And so let's just dive straight into that. Today's seated soliloquy is called Options. I have many theories on life, and one of them is about options. In fact, if you want to know the meaning of life, follow me this way. Not too far to go, not much left. Hurry up, we're almost there. Little Monty Python reference, but seriously, I think one of the answers to the meaning of life is about options, and specifically having them. As we go through life, we hear phrases like the whole world in the palm of your hand and an embarrassment of riches. We also encounter the tyranny of choice when we get overwhelmed with options, and it's exacerbated if we are indecisive. In this soliloquy, I'm not referring to what are we going to eat tonight or what show should we binge watch on Netflix, but rather some of life's bigger decisions, like which company are we going to work for, or in which city are we going to live? These days, actually, the answer could be no one and nowhere. Perhaps the entrepreneurial life, the gig, sharing, Web 3.0, NFT, or creator economy is where we want to focus, and perhaps the nomad life beckons, and with it, the opportunity to work remotely and see the world. I wonder if my guest today, Chris Matz, would contend that we have more or less choice than a generation ago. Personally, I think it's the former. We have more choice. I used to actually believe that as we got older, our choices began to diminish and wane. You know, the prototypical threat or cliche of someone half your age working twice as hard for half the money. From a corporate career standpoint, being laid off in your 50s or 60s was basically terminal. And then, previous guest and one of my favorite thought leaders, Rashad Tabakawala, he turned that on its head and he contended that actually your options increase and improve with age. As always, he's probably right. You know, we think of our kids as having the incredible luxury of not having anything to worry about, nary a care in the world, a straight, predictable, and simple path from high school to college into the working world. And yet, how much of this is free choice versus being forced by society, by expectations, by overbearing parents? On the flip side, we discount our own superpowers of experience, resilience, and wisdom as ingredients in the most liberating of journeys. You know, like becoming a talk show host at 50. So take an option on your future. Go big. And remember, the best is yet to come. And now the best is coming. It's Chris Matz. Let's share a bit on his wonderful background. Chris Matz has been causing trouble, like me, he's a troublemaker, in the Agile community and investment banks for nearly 20 years. Ignoring the advice that every Ghostbuster fan knows, he merged the two streams to create the monster known as Real Options. He is now retired and is no longer bound by the niceties required to hold down a real job. What will he do next? Probably some fiendish analysis of organizational culture. I think we should ask him, Chris Matz, what will you do next?
What will I do next? After this, I'll have my dinner. It may sound like a strange answer, but that is the truth. And then after I've had my dinner, and you know what? This is the first time in my life, now that I've retired, where I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. But I've got all these options in front of me now. I've got all these things I'm thinking about. And I'm just having fun talking to people like you, Joseph, talking to lots of other people. At the moment, the three contenders are to write a book on real options that actually helps people rather than just for my own entertainment. Another thing is to look into the culture that we see in organizations. And then the final thing is to write some kind of pretend sci-fi type novel that will help us steer us past troubled times to a wonderful utopian future. But at the moment, the only thing I can say for definite is after this, for me, next, it's dinner.
Okay, so you have it. I need you to put that into your bio. Like, what will he do next? Probably dinner. But after that, could be there's many options at the moment. But as I say, probably something about options, probably something about culture. So Tom Morris says, very nice seated soliloquy as ever. The original thinker was also seated and nearly as bronze and muscular as Joseph Jaffe. I'm more like a waterbed, I should say, rather than muscular. But I appreciate that very much. Well, Chris, we're going to get into your squiggly path. And might I make a suggestion? If you're looking for a book title idea, how about Ghostbusternomics? Maybe it's like, because we have like free economics, or we have like the experience economy. How about the Ghostbuster economy? Because I think you're onto something about thinking. Well, listen, I'm a streamer, right? I'm in the stream business, and so are you in terms of crossing streams. But before we get to that, let's talk about some fun facts. What does the world not know about Chris Matz other than what he's having for dinner tonight? And I'm sure, you might even be able to tell us. Put us out of misery, by the way. What are you having for dinner tonight?
I think it's going to be fish.
Yummy.
Probably fish. Yeah, it'll be some nice fish dish.
All right, a fish dish. And for those of you, though, on the East Coast, you're thinking about lunch. And for those of you on the West Coast, you're thinking about breakfast. But of course, this show is live at 9, so we're all having dinner. Any questions? No. I think we're good. All right. So, Chris, fun facts about you, my friend. Here is an interesting one. You're probably wondering, what the hell is he showing this image for? And it is because you are Papa Chris Matz on Twitter, because Father Chris Matz was too long a name. And so I had to ask the question, why Father Chris Matz?
So when I was about 18, I was in the pub with a friend of mine, and it was Christmas. And this song comes on, and my friend's going, simply having a wonderful Christmas time. And I realized at that point in time that my father's sense of humor was both sicker than I realized and incredibly subtle, because it had taken me 18 years to spot that he'd named me after a festive season. And when I tried to put Father Christmas in there, because I'm a dad, I got kids, so I thought I'm Father Christmas, give people in on the joke, it wouldn't fit into Twitter. So I became Papa Christmas on Twitter.
I love it. I love it. There's a beautiful story in there, and it's great because, one of the things that I try and teach and train as well is the power of narrative, right? The power of story. So now we know why you are Papa Chris Matz on Twitter. Do you assume that persona or personality sometimes? Is there ever kind of something special that you do, for example, on Christmas? On Chris Matz?
No. I just thought that, and it's one of those things, when you do options, you think about what are the things that can happen. And I considered the possibility of a Sarah Connor moment when people in the future realize what a mess up I've made of reality, and they send Arnold Schwarzenegger back from the future to try and kill me. And the great thing now is, at least when he tries and find me, because I'm looking for Father Christmas, and hopefully it'll give me time to run away and hide. So I think if Sarah Connor had thought it through and called herself the Easter Bunny, she'd have got away a lot quicker.
I think he might have said Father Christmas.
Father Christmas.
All right. Well, the crowd, our live studio audience, is definitely enjoying that. Here's what else we learned about you, which is, you're definitely an adventurer. And one of your stories was that you were actually attacked, or maybe not attacked, maybe just interrupted by a mummy, one of the audience's children wrapped in toilet paper. how the hell did that even happen? And what kind of a keynote were you? What was it? A keynote? Why did they bring their kid?
So it was an Agile conference. It was the first Agile Lean Europe conference, which is fantastic conferences. And as I was flying to the conference in Berlin, I was just giving like a normal tutorial type session. I was reading a book on doing presentations, and at the back there were all these kind of basically horror stories of what had happened to people and what was the worst thing that happened to people. And I was thinking, nothing's really happened to me. And so it was one of those kind of really great conferences where, as well as having all these different tracks for different subjects, they've got a children's track where people could take their kids to the conference, and in effect it was like a nursery for the kids. And it happened to be one of the organizers' birthday that day, so the kids thought it'd be fun to wrap her son in toilet paper like a mummy as a gift, and kind of come and sing happy birthday to her in the middle of my talk. And it was just like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. You know, I wanted a horror story, and it was literally the mummy's tomb in my case. And I just thought, what do you do? And I thought, you know what, there's only one thing you can do, and that's you stop. You watch the action unfold, and then when it's done, you carry on speaking. But it was the most interesting talk I've ever done. And we've been firm friends ever since as a result. Every year we get to relive it whenever I see it's her birthday on Facebook.
So I think there's a very interesting life lesson that comes out of it, which is when, maybe not adversity, right? But when the curveball presents itself, you know, and that's part of the concept of Agile too, in terms of being able to be agile. Instead of trying to push back or resist or fix it, there's maybe some beauty in being able to just sit back and watch it unfold and enjoy it, and then pick up the pieces and move forward. And in this case, it actually became part of the talk that made it memorable.
Yeah, I mean, I did all these other talks. I mean, and it's like, do you ever remember when you're at that dinner party and you said, "Oh yes, I had a wonderful day at work today. Everything worked perfectly." And you know, I had a meeting with my colleagues, and it's like, no, it's always the disasters that kind of provide the interesting stories for us to tell and share and build community with.
You know, it's true. It's the disasters, but it's also the power of context. And it's funny because you know, while I was down in Miami with visiting my son, I went to his marketing class. And so I was sitting with him. I was the only parent who went, so there was a massive amount of embarrassment. And to make it even more embarrassing, I actually met his professor in advance, gave him a copy of my book, had a little chat with him, and he was like, "Please, Dad, just you know, sit down." What he doesn't know, by the way, is that I actually had been speaking to his professor to be a guest lecturer and embarrass him even more. But unfortunately, that didn't work out because the syllabus was too jam-packed. But we were talking about context, right? And one of the things his professor said is, you know, you're going to remember these moments in your life, but you won't remember what you had for dinner 2 weeks ago or like last Wednesday. And that is true, except if there's context involved, except, you know, if, for example, it was the meal when you had to sleep at the airport after your flight was canceled, or, you know, the breakfast when you flew down to Miami to surprise your son. And so, like, context is king, but it's also the ability to kind of realize that which is not the same, that which is unexpected, that which is, you know, surprising, is what becomes memorable.
Yeah, and I've got to refer to you because you took that. I love the intro, and you're telling the story about getting the wrong car. And as you were saying it, I thought, this is so good to meet someone else who suffers these things reality throws at you. I was flying back from a conference, and it's always when you're a bit distracted or tired, and I was jet lagged, and I came off the plane, and I borrowed my girlfriend's suitcase, and it was a big, old-fashioned blue Samsonite thing that's really kind of solid, so that, you know, the contents can't get broken. And her name's P.A. Gage, and it was a big blue one with on it got letters P.A. Gage. And I was tired, a little bit distracted because I'm jet lagged. And I get off the train and I see a bag, and it says, it's a big blue one, it looks exactly the right shape, and it said P.A.G. I thought, that's got to be it. Take it away. Who knew? 2 suitcases blue on the same plane. One of them's got PAG on, the other one's got PA gauge on. And so, yeah, I spent the most of the following day driving around London trying to return the thing. But the universe throws these things at us just so that we've got the story, so that we can empathize with the other person and go, I know how embarrassing it is to actually go knock on someone's door and go, sorry, I've got your suitcase, which is kind of the same as, sorry, I've got your car. But was the new car nicer, or was it not so nice? Because
no, it
I
wasn't.
might have kept the newer one. There's the fact that it was dirty in there with the Starbucks cups.
It wasn't as nice, actually. It didn't have as much air conditioning, I guess. And by the way, Tom, who's a keynote speaker himself, he actually said many of us have had strange things that have happened during a talk, but that would be a great show in itself. But it's hard to beat a mummy. So there you go. You definitely have the what's the strangest thing that's ever happened to you in a talk. It's a great party conversation starter, no doubt. So Chris, I really love those thoughts as well that came out of this in terms of, talking about the fact that these curveballs, these crazy moments of serendipity are actually there to like increase or remind us to be more empathetic with each other and maybe take a break. That's a great way to think about it. There's a lot of things that you've been doing, and I want to like get into this this unbelievable little project of yours. Let me show it. Show it on the screen. I'll give you the ta-da. Now, I'm glad you showed it on the screen, because one of the things that you've certainly said, and I have to agree, is there's just no way that you can do justice to this graphic novel in a digital environment. But I can try my best. I can do that, or I can do that. I can do that as well, if you like. I can do many things. In fact, I can do this if you like, or I can just pepper us and wallpaper us with this book commitment, because I think you have to just immerse yourself into this beautiful book. This is a book, though, about managing project risk. I mean, what? Okay, so this is like The Walking Dead, and we're talking about project risk. So I'm going to just shut up now and have you tell the story of how on earth you ended up with this beautiful visual masterpiece, being able to tell and talk about managing project risk.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for a very kind introduction. So, as I mentioned, I work in investment banks, and I've been working with these things called options, which are very well known in finance, but kind of not so well known outside of finance. And I did a master's degree in 97, 98, so that I could really understand the real kind of nitty gritty detail of it. But I worked in IT, and I did this Agile stuff. And I went to a conference, an Agile conference, and it was a bit of fun. Work's hard, and so it's kind of fun to kind of hang out with people doing the same job. And so I put this graph up, and it showed the risk profile of Agile and of the approach waterfall. And it's the Ghostbuster moment. It's when they cross the streams, and all of a sudden, instead of looking at this IT projects as IT projects, I started looking at them the way we would look at options and futures and all these other things in finance. And my first thing was, let's try and make money out of this, and that failed. And I used my degree for the first time, because you do a degree and you kind of never really use any of it, other than if you're trying to interview someone else who did the same degree as you. And what I discovered out of all of this knowledge of finance that I've got is I came up with this thing called real options, and it was basically four things. So you have options that work in the financial markets, but when you strip away all the context of the financial markets, like what is the price of something, you're left with a few things, and these few things were options have value. So an option has value in its own right. Options expire after a certain period of time, or at certain conditions. The option no longer exists. And then it was never commit early unless you know why. So you should never create a commitment early unless you know why you're doing it. You're doing it for a specific reason. Then finally, the value of options increases with uncertainty. So if you're living in uncertain times, options have more value. And this was just these 4 things, and they've kind of been like a compass ever since. It's like most often in real life, you're living without the map. And these 4 statements you can use as a way of looking at these things, because what most people do is they get overwhelmed by choice. And so as a result, they'll decide, this is how it's going to be. Doesn't matter what you're doing, people will decide, this is how we're going to do it. And reality isn't normally your friend. And so what options thinking is saying, well, okay, rather than deciding now what you're going to do, why don't we think of all the possible things that can happen? And then we'll decide now, but we'll commit later. So like tomorrow, what are you going to wear tomorrow? Well, we can decide that tomorrow, if it's sunny, we'll wear shorts. And if it's raining, we'll have an umbrella. And you're going on a trip. Well, when we go on a trip, we wouldn't think to ourselves, well, I know it's going to be sunny, so I will only pack shorts. What we do is we create the option. So we pack shorts and an umbrella, and then the following day when we're at the resort, we look out the window and we decide, okay, I'll wear shorts or I'll take my umbrella. And you know what, if the weather's looking bad, we might put our shorts on and we might take our umbrella as well. But then we've got the option, rather than making a commitment and saying, it is definitely going to be sunny, I am going to wear shorts. And so that was the start of it. And where it got really interesting was, this is a very rational way of thinking about things. Don't make commitments. Think of the scenarios and then create the options. And what we discovered, though, that people aren't necessarily rational. The rational thing is you'd rather be right about something. And if you're not right, you'd rather be uncertain. And then finally, if you're not uncertain, the last thing you want to be is wrong. But if you look at people's behavior, because they hate uncertainty so much, what they'd say is, we'd rather be right. And if we're not right, we'd rather be wrong. But the worst thing is to be uncertain. And this is where this real options thing really comes in and helps us, because it helps us manage that uncertainty. Because instead of saying, this is the way the world's going to be, I'm just going to pack my shorts, we think, well, actually, it doesn't cost as much to pack our shorts and an umbrella. And so we introduced it initially in project management for IT. But then I started to know when people got it, because they used it for more interesting things like, planning their weddings or, getting their kids into the right school. And in 2012, we said, you know what? It's probably too early. People don't like uncertainty. So we created what we call a time capsule. So we wrote the book so that in 10, 20 years time, myself and the other author can go back to other people and go, ha, we invented that 20 years ago. But it turned out that creating the book was a lot more fun in a way than the real options in some cases. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Where do you want me to go?
Well, hold on a second. Like
you've got lots of options.
Well, you're kind of blowing my mind in the sense that you've written a book from the future to be able to go back and say, see, I told you so. But you still haven't answered the question, why tell this story and introduce this paradigm or this framework, this rubric in the form of a graphic novel? That's fascinating to me.
Yeah. So what happened? The story there, which is actually a story I've not told really before, is the why I did it was a friend of mine, Luke Homan, recommended this book to me, Understanding Comics, which is possibly, I think, one of the greatest books on corporate communication for many years. So I read this, and it was at the time, if you remember, that something was happening in the economy. Those horrible people with options and whatever had blown up the economy in 2008. And the governments around the world were making all the wrong decisions. And so I got so angry, and I'd read this comic and I thought, I know, I'll draw a comic. So I sat there on the tube train on the way to work, drawing a comic book, and I drew a 60-page comic book explaining how you price financial options and other things, and explaining why the government had done the wrong thing. And then I thought, well, that's cool. So I started sketching little stories. And one of the Agile websites started publishing these little kind of 3-page comic strips that I'd hand drawn. And what we discovered is people got it more. So one of the things about comics that we kind of like didn't intend, but we discovered by accident, is when you're dealing with complex ideas or complicated ideas, if you explain something in more than one way to a person as an author or in a book, they feel that the tone of the book is condescending. Yeah, it's kind of like if I explain it one way and then another, you feel you're condescending to the, because, you know, as an author, you have the voice of God and you're speaking to your reader. And if you say, well, this is the way some people understand it, but if you don't understand it, how about this? What we discovered with the comic is what you're doing is you're watching a dialogue between two people. So because it's a dialogue, it's natural for us to actually observe the dialogue where something's explained different ways. And because they're talking to the other character in the book, they don't feel that the author is talking to them and talking down to them. They feel that it's a conversation between the two characters. So having the form of a comic or a play, but the problem was we couldn't get actors who would actually kind of sit on the desk and kind of explain it to people. By setting it as a comic book, it allowed us to introduce the ideas as a dialogue without engaging the readers and the readers feeling that they were being condescended to. And that's why, and then, so from that, we then had to go and learn about how to write stories. We hired a great author, a great artist who was also a storyteller, and he introduced us to the hero's journey, and we used the hero's journey to structure it. And this will sound a strange, I'm going to introduce this, but we as a group who did it, my co-author is in Holland, the artist is in near Heathrow, and we only ever met together, the three of us, once before we created the book, and we worked together online to create the book. And of the 8 hours that we were together, we discussed just one subject, and that was the main character's hair. Because we worked out that if we made a mistake with her hair, it would be very expensive to redraw and change everything. Whereas if we made mistakes with dialogue and things like that, we could change it easily. And in a way, that's why on the front, what you've got is that the main character's hair is, it's basically, when she's stressed, it's kind of tied up. And when she's relaxed, she lets her hair down. And that's what we spent most of that first day discussing, was the two styles of hair and when she should be wearing the hair in different styles. And we did that so that then the artist knew that if we said she was stressed, she would put her hair up, and if she was relaxed, her hair would be down.
I am, you know, I've got to go back and rewatch this, because there is so much richness. There's so many nuggets and Easter eggs in terms of the randomness and the serendipity, and, you know, and how, you know, an investment banker and talking about options and financial units of trade and currency. I don't know. I'm a marketer, as I say. I don't know how to save money. I only know how to spend it. And yet, you know, you've won an award for this, and this is what you've become. This is what you've been recognized for. I mean, you are a true creative, in the sense that this 8-hour conversation about the main, you know, the protagonist or the main character's hair, that is exactly what the creative process is. And you almost look at it and think it's insane. They're insane, worrying about kerning, worrying about, you know, Pantone colors. But the devil truly is in the details. And if you care that much about her hair, can you imagine how much you care about everything else?
So we wanted it. So one of the things that we hate, and this is exactly to your point, one of the things we hate is when you see a film and they go, "Hi Bob, this is Steve," and so on, and two people who know each other really well are introducing each other. And so we said we didn't want that. We wanted to do more like James Elroy, I think it is. And we wanted a very naturalistic style where people are referring to each other as sis and brother and stuff, rather than as, you know, their full name. Hello, this is Inspector Son. And so if you watch LA's, LA Confidential, it's this wonderful film because every character uses a different name for each character, but because it's visual, you can see it. And so we have this scene in the second chapter where she meets her sister and they go to a nightclub and to a bar. And the reason is so that we can introduce their names in a naturalistic style. And so their names are Lily and Rose. But this is kind of my favorite of those Easter eggs you mentioned, which is on the first page of the book, you've got the main character Rose speaking to her sister Lily on the phone. But those of you who like art will recognize that this is John Singer Sargent's Lily Carnation Rose. So there's an Easter egg in that the names of the characters are there on the first page of the book, if you know them. But otherwise you have to wait for chapter 2 to find out who they are.
Love it. Well, I can't wait to get my physical copy of the book. Please go and make the commitment and buy Commitment. Just, you know, follow Chris Matz. You know, you will have a merry Chris Matz if you follow him. Now, we're not even probably going to get to discussing culture in organizations, culture in communities, but I want you guys to take down these URLs because you can watch Chris in action talking about culture. What we are going to do, though, is I'm going to introduce, as I always do, my quote of the day. And for you, Chris, I chose this quote, also taking a different option on the word option. And because you are in the wealth creation business, your quote is, wealth is not about having a lot of money. It's about having a lot of options. And I'm not sure whether, in fact, Chris Rock, because it had to be a Chris, was referring to financial options or life options. But there is your quote.
Brilliant. Thank you. I love it. And one of the things that people really get caught up on is when we say they have value, options have value. The question is, what's it worth to give a good friend of yours a hug? What's it worth to give your partner a kiss? Those things have value. It's just you can't put monetary value on them. And you know what? The value to you is the difference to the value to other people. And that's one of the reasons that financial maths doesn't work in the real options world, because actually the things that we value actually aren't financial.
Yeah, well said, well said. Speaking of well said and well, it is time now for our correspondent, Gregarious Narain, who focuses on entrepreneurship. And I always like my guests to hang around for this. So we will give you Greg, who's going to be talking about community.
So this week I want to talk to you about community. It's come up a few times, and I think community represents the future of all entrepreneurship for a number of reasons, right? For starters, if we always think back to how things went, a team that builds a company, your business, is a community. It's a small family even. Your customers represent another community of people or individuals. But today, and even more so, there are lots of fans for your business as well. Now, they can't always afford to be a customer, or maybe they're a customer in waiting. But community is ultimately the power to build relationships over time. And those relationships stand the test of time by people showing up. And as an entrepreneur, one of the hardest things that you can do is actually to build a community. It's not the kind of problem you solve with dollars and cents. It's the kind of problem you solve with ingenuity, empathy, and ultimately investing your time and energy into caring. And so I encourage you as an entrepreneur to spend more time thinking about how community is an important part of your business, but don't force it. Spend the time, invest in people, all the people, your customers, your employees, your stakeholders, your investors, and ultimately invest in yourself. Because if you aren't ready to show up, then no one else will.
And of course, you know, on the subject of culture in communities, what did you think about that, Chris? And the thoughts, not just, you know, if you don't show up, no one else will, but this idea of kind of thinking about community on so many different levels and across so many different constituencies.
Yeah, and I think the thing with communities is that one of the things I see is people talk about communities, but it's all about transactional kind of getting something out of the community. When we did the book, we had huge support from the community in terms of creating it and as well as kind of promoting it. And there's something like 50 members of the community who do cameos in the book in one way or another. And, you know, by bringing the community into that creative process, you know, we didn't have to pay for influencers to go out and sell it. I mean, the people who sell the book for us are the people who are in our community who feel part of it. So it's about bringing them in and making it part of it. And so acknowledging their contributions as well, rather than just, you know, take the contributions, but and you know what? The thing about community is people don't need the public acknowledgement. One of the things people don't realize about IMDb is that all of the content on IMDb is provided free by a community similar to Wikipedia. But it's that community, and they kind of recognize each other's contributions. They don't need the rest of the world to know what they've done. But for them, it's about recognition, you know, not for the whole world, but just for them.
Well, Chris, you're part of my community, our community, Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous community. Hopefully, we'll see you back for the reunion show.
Yeah.
But we will see you also in about 10 minutes or so after Super Shalonda has finished presenting. Take a breather, go have a bite of your fish dinner, have a drink, and we will see you in about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Well, that was Chris Matz, and now it is time for Super Shalonda, the Poetic Spark. Shalonda, I better pronounce this right. Degrafin, I can't do it. Degrafenreid. I'm just going to say Shalonda Whitmore. How about that? Shalonda Whitmore is an award-winning poet, educator, author, and voice actress. She helps children, teens, and adults feel good about themselves and what is to come in their lives. Shalonda believes deeply in the power of expression and continues to build creative writing workshops for children, teens, and adults. She's an absolute angel, and as we even evidenced in the green room, she was just giving and dishing out just love and blessings. And so now let's welcome her on the show and apologize for butchering her middle name. Shalonda, welcome.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me, Joseph. That was so sweet. That was such a sweet introduction. You said it was close enough. Shalonda DeGraffenreid.
DeGraffenreid.
Yeah, but
like Degrassi, DeGraffenreid. Okay, yeah. I got it. I love it. DeGraffenreid.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Well, Shalonda, you are our creator of note, and you're not just a creator. You're so much more. It's amazing. You're a voice actress. You're an author. You're an educator. You know, and of course, you're a poet. One of the things that I've been so blessed as bringing so many of the creators on the show is to find out how much more there is to every performer and performance than just a talent or an art, and how many of these creators are actually using their powers and superpowers to help so many others and make the world a better place. So I'm going to disappear and leave you on stage to perform the poem. Is this your poem, I assume?
Yes.
And it's called I Cannot Die with These Words.
Yes.
Shalonda, take it away.
Thank you so much. I cannot die with these words. I cannot die with these words in my heart, clawing my soul awake at night, begging me to do my part, to shower some stranger's ears with my art, heal another with the simplicity of my simple ability to simply start, causing another to cross over simply because simple old me saw the possibility to simply finish, having the audacity to write my whole soul out and watch God simply replenish. I simply cannot die with these words. I cannot close my eyes and silently await eternity when every letter, every syllable, every strung together sentence keeps me awake at night, burning me, urging me to keep on going. And though I often feel silly as my thoughts show up on paper, wondering before any complete thought leaves impression, whether the point of it all, or at least the point I've been aching to get across, will simply disappear as vapors, leaving me another lost soul in old books and family photos or random memories long ago tapered. You see, I've been shown too much favor. I must share, not only in my gifts of word and thought construction, but more in my God-given willingness to face the empty screen or the empty paper and try to function, to see a blank page and have the ability to engage. Whether when the shortcomings of this world are the ones I hold inside fill me with rage, or when insecurities with my own importance seem to grow with the relentlessness of age, or when the sheet's blankness seems too intimidating, but also possibly the key to unlock my society-driven cage, seemingly forever enclosing me within the confines of what others think and how they expect me to calibrate to the ultimate conformity and societal likability gauge. No way. Not when deep inside my heart, I know I could never fit inside their sacrificial expectations, and I would ache that I be content on minimal creativity, minute recognition of self, and for damn sure not mediocrity and mental minimum wage. That there is nothing they could make, do, or say that could ever assuage what is inside. When I myself was sent here to teach others, learn myself, and by God, gradually, gratefully, and gainfully graduate. I cannot die with these words. When so many have been trampled with the futility of the fear of speaking that we too often see surface. When so many have lost their purpose by lack of service and unwillingness to submit to the strength-inducing hope of courage. When I myself have prayed and begged God for just one more chance to open myself and not remain blanketed by the mind-numbing, body-conforming, body-confining, soul-wrenching reality of nervous. I cannot die with these words. Knowing that having been given the ability at all is reason enough to move forward with this sharing and not stall. Knowing that one more snooze on God's call might make me miss the chance to stand and save it all. Playing my part with the rest of you, giving voice and cause. Whether verbal, written, musical, or other, needing to be heard, audacity to stand up tall. Knowing that I could mess up the entire collective symphony and performance with pause, tarnishing you, me, and every other inspired soul that has ever had the gall to share, to speak, to write, to teach, to only for the sake of sharing, minister or preach, that Christ within us, willingness to fall. No, I cannot be silent at all. I cannot die with these words. Knowing that my assignment might be overlooked if I stop and consider too long, that perhaps I am not truly qualified to say I wrote a couple books, or hook these thoughts into poems or paragraphs, too scared for the chance to be taken. Perhaps even less qualified to say that it really is true and I have authored something that could leave someone, somewhere, shaken. Positively taken by the temptation to share their own voice and outlook, realizing I could choose to stay quiet and leave some soul somewhere alone, feeling like God has forsook. Just because I was too busy for my assignment, too cowardly, too bothered, too basic to put my thoughts in a book. Something tells me that a little piece of salvation is tossed and withheld when we choose to be unheard, where every piece of life and love and light just might be a little tarnished if we leave inspiration unserved. I cannot leave this earth selfish, choking on unshared adjectives, nouns, and verbs. I cannot sleep forever haunted by the souls I didn't touch. I cannot die with these words. We cannot leave this earth selfish, choking on unshared adjectives, nouns, and verbs. We cannot sleep forever haunted by the souls we didn't touch. Hey, you, we cannot die with these words.
I almost feel like that was an anthem for the creator economy. You know, that was an anthem for just, it's so funny how each one of us has written, put words onto paper, digital, copies, written books, but with this opportunity to leave something behind, inspire today and leave a legacy tomorrow. That was amazing. And you have a new book and podcast series coming soon, called The Poetic Spark. I almost feel like, again, just like I've given a book title for Chris of Ghostbusters, I almost feel coming soon is your book. Maybe it's your autobiography coming soon. This idea of promise and potential and talent flourishing. That was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Holy cow, that was just, I was like, oh my God, that's the number of nights where I have just, just not been able to sleep because I'm there and I've got these ideas and I'm like, if I don't write them down now, and the years of discipline it's taken for me to actually go, no, you don't have to get out of bed now. Wait till the morning, which is why I do most of my writing at like 6 a.m. But wow, that was a knock you on your ass moment. That was brilliant. Oops.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And do it now. Keep that pen by your bed, writers. Keep that phone. Keep that notepad open. Keep it on the bottom. Recorders and producers, keep your audio record open. Sometimes it doesn't wait.
I actually pay someone. There's a little chap who sits by the side of my bed. I wake up with him. I'm so important with my ideas. Write that down for me.
Brilliant. I need that. Hey, give me that number.
Tom Morris says, wonderful. Thanks for the wisdom of your poem. And Tatiana Thompson says, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I dedicate it to all us creators, and we all are.
There's also, I've noticed so much, especially in the form of poetry, that, some poems, there's always so much emotion, but some of that emotion comes from determination, and it's not so much hate, but there's anger, there are these extreme frustration, determination, and with you it's a quieter confidence. There's a lot of love and nurturing. Chris spoke about empathy earlier as well. So that frustration, in a way, it doesn't consume you. It's a part of you, but it doesn't consume you.
Absolutely. It's very much a part. And there are some poems that I have where for that poem, it's raw anger in many ways, and it's a release, but they always come back around to don't stay there. Feel how you feel, but don't stay there and let it drive you. And yes, if we let it consume us, we become someone else. We take in other people, how they talk to us, their intentions. We take it in all in this really gritty filter of looking to be hurt, looking to be angry. We felt that, we feel it. I'm looking to be healed. I'm looking to heal others. The more I can keep my vessel whole and feeling the feelings, but ultimately focus on the giving back, the togetherness, the kindness, the connectedness. That's what my first title is, Speaking the Law of Kindness. It's from the Proverbs woman. Being kind doesn't mean we don't feel. I'm not talking about playing nice. Oh, how are you? And someone hates your guts. That's fake. I'm talking about being kind enough to myself to be authentic, being kind enough to you all to meet you, and if I never met you, to still want for you what I want for me. Freedom, peace, expression, love, abundance in all ways.
You knew that was no. I mean, that was poetry as well. I was smiling as you were talking, and I was like, wait a second, is she reading this? If you go back and you replay that, I mean, that was just liquid gold poetry. That was beautiful. Chris, we've all chosen to express ourselves in different ways. You through a graphic novel, super Shalonda through your beautiful words and your poetry. I've switched from being even an author to presenting in the form of being a talk show host. I love this. I love how we come together, and we are all basically coming from different places, doing different things, different ways, and yet we're all the same.
Yes. Beautifully said.
We're not, because I'm rubbish at poetry, and that was just the most beautiful thing I've heard. I kind of feel that, you know, I wish I'd listened to Shalonda for like 50 minutes. And
oh no, look, I'll be back. But you know what's cool? I'm a part of a new cartoon audio troupe, and I wish I put this more in the bio. I didn't want to overflood it. But it's called The Funky Eye Puppets. It's on Clubhouse, created by the awesome I Paint Creatures. Some wonderful characters. I'm a performance coach for the crew, and I'm also a voice actor. And we're starting comics. So you all come check it out. We would love to connect in so many ways. We have global people. It's
amazing.
Awesome. And we're about inclusion. I have a son with autism. My daughter, super into comic books. The last thing she said to me today before she went to school, Mom, comic book store soon, right? And that's how we spend the weekend. So no, we're all together. I told her we're going to do a comic book with Mommy's poetry. We're working on a lot, so we are definitely connected.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So wait. So when Chris, when your book is brought into the silver screen, we know who's going to be doing the voices for it. Glenn says, "What a great show." And Shalonda, before we go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. You got to give me at least one character. Give me one of the characters.
Oh, what's up? My name is DJ Scratch, coming straight from the Kakapa G's, representing that 96542, coming around, making sure that I can be me and you can be you. We are yokai warriors, spreading love and light. Come on through and see us, the Funky Eye Puppets, soon, day and night.
Woo!
wow.
Okay, wait a second. You know what? Somebody wants to comment on that, and that, of course, is Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you
Chuck
go.
Norris said I am indeed approved.
Shalonda, Chris,
Chuck Norris.
You guys are awesome. Hopefully, we'll see you back for our reunion show. Chris is on tomorrow, and then Chris again on Wednesday, and Chris on Thursday. Basically, this show is just going to be Chris Matz's until the Messiah arrives. So take care, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Blessings to you both.
Blessings to you.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.